Tonight's speaker tonight is Chinese meritocracy.
Well, I had a big discovery. Just something. Say, this up. So it's a book, China book. That's fascinating. Very. So Just Steele. on, on that generations. So these experts can consider future generations, whereas the people who were nominated, elected by the voters, were not going to consider future generations. Well, you know, so, but, so I'm very unimpressed by Daniel Bell's arguments in favour of the political meritocracy system. I think, meritocracy, I think, is a big thing. And I think it's in many ways a dangerous thing, because if you think about the way many honest, generous
That
take targeting. That's the closest it's been, actually. We had a lot of them.
there's a drone outside the window.
Well, you know, if you count the distance between the flash and the sound, that's the number of miles. So, I thought it was
So that was.
So Deng Xiaoping brought tremendous progress, and then Xi Jinping is reversing what Deng Xiaoping
yeah, I
done.
think so. I think it's reversal.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean see, the reversal happened in the United States with all the accumulation of interventionist measures. It didn't kill all the enterprise in the United States right away. In fact, it hasn't killed it today. It hasn't killed it. You know, China is going to be top dog, way ahead of the United States for decades, at least 20 years. So I don't expect that to change because but I could expect. One of the things that's quite striking about China is how quickly things get done. And you couldn't get them done that quickly. It's because of all these regulations which leftists have imposed upon us over the past couple of years. You know, because when leftists get to power, get practicality, what do? They put in place things that stop things happening.
Sounds conservative. I know what you mean. I agree with you.
Yeah. Right, it is strange, yes. Right, there is a paradox there. Still, I think, you know, it's interesting to hear one of the many voices on China I've been listening to is leftists who thoroughly support China. You know, there's usually Marxist leftists, some theory in their heads that in China, the official denomination of China is socialist Chinese characteristics. In fact, it's capitalism, Chinese characteristics. But that's the official thing. So all these various Trotskyists and all kinds of Marxist leaders, they're having a field day praising China. But what's so great about China is there are not all these erotic controls that have been fastened upon the American economic system by decades and decades of leftist meddling. So it's ironic, you know, they say, oh, how quickly we built a high-speed rail. What? You know, look at all the obstacles. And by the way, if look at how the obstacles have to come to begin the construction of nuclear power. In the US, I mean, it's going to take you 5 years to get all the permissions before you start construction. And then the construction work is so governed by all kinds of unnecessary regulations. That's going to take you another 5 years. So it's going to take you 10 years to build a nuclear power plant once you made the decision you're going to try and do it. In China, it all happens so quickly because there isn't the over-regulations. One point that Gordon said that I should mention because it is important is that the important fact about China to keep in mind is that China keeps up the government anti-corruption. You know, very enthusiastic and determined search for and persecution of people. And you know, this is very noisy thing in China. It's this rooting out corruption. It leads to the something. What is a is so bad. If you want to get rid of it, just look into it. You find it easily. Anemia, protein. By the way, I mentioned this. I find this is no relevance to it. I'll just remember. I work for we recently published. So we wanted to say, okay, we when I almost
hear about the abundance because that largely talks about how very hard it is to get anything done in the United States. How, you build a toilet for $1 million, you spend $1 billion for low income housing that ends up being $500,000 per unit.
Is that as
Yes, Ezra Klein, yes, abundance. He acknowledges that you just can't get a damn thing done today.
The system is cheap.
there should be self-reflection on that side of the policy?
I think that's the line that's willing to, face the facts with his own.
Not just face accountability. It's my side that has, like I think
This is the one guy who said that Joseph Biden shouldn't run for re-election too. He said that for the debate. He did.
so. Just real quick, there's a exchange between I think it's Klein and Jon Steele's podcast. This thing. There's this because they're kind of the same page.
It's $1 million toilet in the national park. It costs us $1 million to do that.
I just like to take mutual access.
you go to wireless because you're late to advance, so you don't have to go through the process. You can leapfrog. You can learn from other people's experience. You don't have a late copper only to replace it, right? Like the normal process of industrialization. They just go straight to the edge.
One is, to me, one of the things sensitive. It's so great. It's great.
I can address a couple of questions.
Number one, in some sense, because every country has leaders like
It's not a country. It's a party.
Real quick,
So
is it 1989?
yeah, the sensitivity is a relative term. Well, they could be more sensitive than they are. They were more sensitive before than. It's a relative term. Yeah, they could be more relaxed. That's your point. I can see that. I can see that. Oh, I can tell. I can feel you in one thing. When I was there, actually, you have banner thing. Open up, take group photo. That's kind of generally frowned upon. The government, I don't think there's a law against it, but generally it's politically incorrect. They can stop you, they don't have to. They could stop you, they don't. Even though you're going out, you're a Korean tour group. Your tour guide had a Korean flag leading the way. It's not totally cool. I can't explain totally why.
well, like if you wore a shirt that has a picture.
I don't know about that, but I'm just with a flag and going up, or with a long banner. Generally, you don't do that.
Well, no, I just meant seems to be preference.
I know. I'm just saying because you mentioned a Times Square, you're going to open up a banner, and
Well, I mean, I could.
right. They have their sensitivity. All right, we can imagine why. They have their sensitivity. They don't do that. But other areas, you have more freedom. But that thing, they just did happen to not like it. Right?
Yeah.
That's all I can say about it. At Times Square, it is hard debate to conduct because we can say it calmly. We can tell the facts. You can tell your fact. I can tell my. We can reconcile. We can see who's right, and we can reason. But normally in the debate, in the discourse, like a public forum, in the news media, diplomatically, or in a quarrel, like with different human rights group, all that stuff, try to intervene China's affairs. It's very hard. It's probably for their calculation. It's better not said than winning a debate.
Well,
Argue strenuously.
About you.
They rather keep it. They rather ignore it, especially newer generation. If you're born after 1989, if you're born even 1988, 87, they rather this generation and later generation, forget it. All right? You have very little information. You heard about that. Oh, I'm not quite clear what happened, but because you know very little, you tend to buy 100% the government's try to sell you, which is very clean. Right? Nothing's very clean. This is reality, real world. Nothing's very clean. But I can tell you that as time went on, going away from 1989, it's more and more clear. Number one, it was a failed color revolution. Number two, the casualty in Tiananmen Square, 0. It was a street, Tang'anjie, cross Tiananmen Square all the way to the outskirts of the city. That's where casualty was, and the casualty was upwards of 200. It's not like 2,000, 10,000 as you knew.
So the analogy is in 1960.
Chicago, right? Chicago.
And you can talk.
Yeah, it's a different system. It's different culture. It's you want to compare. I can only say, when you compare two things, you will see discrepancy. One is always higher than the other one. That's endless. You compare. Well, now you want to understand why this difference. But I tell you, philosophically, there's always difference, right? When you want to explain it, okay, we can try to wrap our head around it. Well, I can tell you it's a political culture. Also, China doesn't have the transparency that the U.S. does. The political culture, political system. It doesn't have transparency. It doesn't have the lower level of democracy. What is liberty? Let's say liberty. So transparency, liberty, that explains it.
Well, it's unfortunate.
Well, that's fine. They do better than before, right? In those terms. But the Tiananmen Square is clearly, well, because they have people not infiltrating actually, because no one's gonna know what happened. Tiananmen Square was June 9th, right? That was June 4th. But the people gathering on the square to protest starting late April. But the prior December, CIA, they have the agents of CIA already getting into Hong Kong, getting into Beijing, setting up office. They have some cover to do that, and they were cable back to the Washington D.C. We predict something's going to happen. It's like, well, you have a plan. We have a plan going to China. We plan on something, and you send back. Let's say you're sent from Washington D.C. American. You say something's going to happen. Then your boss back to Washington D.C. Yeah, we're on track. Oh, we may not know it's March or April or something, but something's happened. So I'm your boss sitting in Washington, D.C. You're the guy out there in Beijing. You send me, something's going to happen. Because the guy is doing his job. We're on track. I'm more comfortable. Well, just have an update every week. If you say, oh, we don't know, what's going on? Joe, what are you doing there? You're just eating Chinese food. So we're going to check on you every hour. But you say, boss, something's going to happen soon. We'll say, okay, I will check with you probably once a month or once every 2 weeks. So that kind of cable existed. As time went on, it's all surfaced. People know. So there's multiple organizations. They disguise as religious or business or some same think tank. Yeah, I know. I'm just filling in. I know. I took this. I got you. I believe I addressed your question. But I was just trying to fill in take this opportunity. This Tiananmen Square is nothing short of the failed color revolution. The casualty was not that great. It was like 200 because their people, they risked the rifles off the soldiers. They start shooting. So what are the soldiers to do? They're going to shoot back. And they stopped an armored vehicle. They threw a bomb inside the armored vehicle. You open the hatch. I want to talk to you. Boo, boo, boo. And you open the hatch. You throw the what's it called? Molotov cocktail in there. So I mean, if your soldier is gonna come out, it's gonna catch fire inside, and they come out, they beat you up, and then they strip you. They open your stomach. That sort of thing. That's where casualty. It's on both sides of soldiers and civilians, and more regular civilians than students, because students are on the square. No one died on the square. Yeah, I know. I believe I addressed your question. I'm just trying to take this opportunity to fill in because I believe most Americans here they don't have the latest. They certainly got bombarded with propaganda, but they don't have the latest. Remember 1989, Soviet Union was on the way down, and there's the Arab Spring, and those are around those years. Arab Spring. And
Spring was
It was
Those years, they started
There's
in China.
been eight
There
different
was-
Arab Springs in
no,
Arab.
no. There was
Egypt and
In the late
what's it?
80s.
Yeah, late 80s, early
Okay, he's talking
90s.
about an Arab Spring in the late 80s.
Yeah.
I thought it was later.
Well,
Maybe
color
there's more
revolution.
than one.
Tunisia was later.
Okay. Well, let's not
Well,
just
let's just call it series of revolutions.
Yeah.
CIA backed revolution. That's the time to expand liberalism and to get rid of the regimes they don't like, because they think we're special, our system is special, and we're promoting human rights and peace. Because if all turn to the same political governance system like us, then there will be peace. So that's what's behind that movement, all the color revolution.
My question is, when I hear the term color revolution, I think there's some stirring up.
Yeah, like France and
Who was the outside force? If my understanding is roughly correct, who was the outside force instigating this?
Yeah, outside force, obviously CIA, but inside force, they have to find a crack. They have to find a wedge to drive a wedge. The wedge, actually, you're telling us it's a very good question, because it got me back to the very important point, because Tiananmen Square always advertised or portrayed as a democracy movement from the students. Actually, it's not, because initially, because the transition of the political economic system from state-owned to private-owned, you had to transfer the assets, the means of production, to the private hands. That's where a lot of corruption happens.
Yeah.
So you got a first dip, you got a second dip, I got no dip. So I'm going to go out and protest. Plus, I'm a factory worker. Used to the old days, all the factories, all the companies are state-owned. So I would have a job for life if I don't do anything stupid. I would have job security, benefits. I'm not rich, but I'm safe. I'm stable. I have job security. But now because the economic transformation, my factory turned private, and they decided to have a merger because it turned private. All the red ink comes up, and now we don't have the protection of the state ownership. Now we have to make money. If we don't make money, we have red, and we have to lay out people, or we're gonna have a merger to kind of fix it up a little bit. When merger happens, people get laid off. So I go out to protest. What do I protest? I want socialism back. I don't want capitalism. I don't want free market. That's when it started. It's like opposite to wanting democracy. Actually, what it wanted is less freedom, less democracy. We want to go back to socialism.
so like so in China, it's a right-wing conservative / reaction.
It depends on when you're talking about. If you're talking about in the 80s, the conservatives wanted to go back to communism, so to speak. But you're talking about today, the conservatives wanted to preserve what it is right now, which is not communism, but it's definitely not Western liberalism. So it depends on the time you're talking about.
My main point is communism can be right wing in certain instances.
By right.
Okay. If you really want to use that scale,
Reactionary, go back on the way.
yeah. Okay, just common terms, right? You're talking logic, but there's no logic, and it's just common terms, how people use those words. Like in Cultural Revolution, the far left are the ones that are Mao, that are his wife, or the Gang of Four. Those are far left. So Cultural Revolution was a far left movement in China. So the right wing will be the old guard communists. The far left are the new radical.
The far left 20 years ago.
Well, we're talking about during Cultural Revolution. The far right,
Prior.
the right are old guard communists. Those were the revolutionary generation. Those are the ones that defeated KMT. They helped the Communist Party get China, like the ruler of the China. Those are the old guards. Those are the right, but some of those are newer generation. They are far left. They started the Cultural Revolution, and Mao piggybacked on it to defeat his political enemies. So there's far right in that context, but today it's a different context. So the words are used, words mean different. So your point is, what's your point? Why China have this such a high-flying economic development in such a short time, unprecedented? You're right. There are three reasons I can come up with. Yours is one reason. One of the three reasons. I think it's one major reason because China was so far back. They were playing catch up. They were trying to make up for lost time. So that period, you can grow very fast because it's kind of low-hanging fruit, if you will. Also, then another reason is that some people say, I don't know if it's Kool-Aid or something, they say Mao actually, the economy was bad, people's living standards were low because Mao was emphasizing on heavy industry because he was all big on, we want to have iron production and fuel production. We have to catch up to the U.S. and heavy industry. So he was pretty much ignoring the light industry. That's why people's living standard was low. But because his emphasis, now the China is ready to full-scale economic development, industrialization, they can benefit from the heavy industry foundation that Mao's policy have established for them. And that's one pro-Mao kind of theory. Another reason is you have to look at the detail. You say high-speed railway. High-speed railway is it's a product of deficit spending because the high-speed railway took off in China right after financial crisis 2008 and 2009. So China was not directly impacted, but it was impacted. It was not directly impacted by the U.S. or the Europe, so it was okay for a while. But because other countries, the major countries are impacted, it will cascade it to them. Because the market will be shrinking, investment will be dwindling, so they eventually be impacted. And Chinese Communist Party, they need to keep the growth up, so they have deficit spending. So which area is best area to spend? Railway, because China is so big, and the railroad system was so backward. So if you renovate it, you put in the best one, the new technology, people will be happy. If people are happy, Communist Party is happy. So no one will say, hey, I don't like the party, I don't like government. How come we don't have election like the West? They do have election, like David mentioned. Well, how come we don't have election like the West to replace the party, right? But if people are happy, they're less inclined to say those things. So that's a policy. From 2009, they have a 5-year plans. After 5-year plans, they really build up the high-speed rail network. Now that China alone is like 60% of the high-speed rail worldwide. 60% of high-speed railroad networks are in China. That's because, but they have a lot of debt. They have a lot of debt. It's unfair because if you're a local government, if you're a provincial governor, it's not fair. How come I have to pay majority of it and Beijing pay less of it? Now the debt is on me and Beijing is no debt. China's debt, like U.S. debt, is mainly on the federal government. China's government debt is mainly on the local government, provincial or the county, the local government. They try to accommodate, they try to build up things to accommodate the foreign investors. If you're Apple, if you want to have a factory, or you're Elon Musk, if you want to build a Tesla factory, well, I build out things for you, so it's a good environment for you to have a company and a factory, because all the railroad, all the supply chains, all the things is ready for you. So I want it as Shanghai government or a Shenzhen government. I want it because I show my boss in Beijing, hey, let's offer for promotion. See that my city or my province economy is faster than other economies, growing better because I have Tesla, I have Apple, I have this, I have that. So, but I pile up debt to attract those foreign investors in. And Beijing said, oh, I don't know, it's your problem, you figure out. So how they figure out? The local government, because in socialism, the government has all the means of production. The biggest means of production for any country, especially for a country like China, like pre-industrial era, the biggest means of production is land. So therefore, the government has all the lands. And the government, they delegate the land, Beijing delegate the land to the provinces. The provinces delegate land to counties and cities and stuff. So the local government, well, they can sell bonds, but the bond market wasn't that developed at the time. Well, they have the right to land. So if you want, I can authorize you to build up, and I get a cut, and that's my revenue. I can use that, or I can borrow from the banks, use the land as a collateral. So use land. So now there are a lot of build up because of that. Now the real estate bubble burst a couple of years ago, and we still feel the impact to this day. So that's the little detail how China grew so fast. Now it's not growing fast anymore because the low-hanging fruit is off. Now they kind of caught up already, and now they're just progressing like any country. So they can have 10% growth. They have to, like any country, be happy about 3%, 4%. Actually, they have 5% growth projected this year, and yeah, but GDP is one thing. You have to look at detail. GDP, like Keynes, if you broke the window, you put up new glass, that's GDP. So that it depends on what GDP. But in general, grossly, you can say, well, GDP higher is better than GDP lower, right? GDP growth. So just a lot of debt. I believe they can resolve it. I mean, the debt ratio, GDP ratio is still lower than U.S., but China is not like U.S. U.S. still, they have U.S. has U.S. dollar, China doesn't have. So we will see. And so the China science, we all know China is not good at from 0 to 1 as far as science and technology. Yeah, they're good with 1 to 2. And that's one way to look at it. They don't invent anything, but they refine, they advance something, they apply certain things. Also, how many Chinese Nobel Peace, not Peace Prize, science-related prize winners? Not that many.
Chinese scientists.
Well, yeah, because the system, partially because of the system, partially because of the culture. But they are good at applying the science, becomes a technology. There's a science, there's technology. China has a lot of engineers. When you have a lot of engineers, you will have more good engineers. But they don't have a lot of, as many proportionally, scientists as the West, where they win a lot of Nobels, like science-related prizes. So that's what China. So if China and U.S. can combine, they can compromise. They can what's the word? They can make up for each other's benefits and compensate. They can compensate each other. Also, I suppose compensate. And the AI, the model level, right? And the chip level, China is not as advanced as U.S.
But they're moving fast.
The model level, the U.S. still ahead of China. They say 6 months, by 6 months. But the application stack. Application level, China is way ahead of the U.S.
Yeah, the thing is, though.
So there's different cultures, different countries, different systems. They're good at different things. So if the two countries can not be enemies or like adversaries, but like cooperation or business partners, that both countries will be doing much better off.
Now,
So that's
our president.
So about the president and Xi Jinping versus Donald Trump, that's one thing. Who raised that point? Xi Jinping. Oh, you raised it. Xi Jinping and Deng Xiaoping, they're different eras. They're different times. Deng Xiaoping is the one that came fresh out of the Cultural Revolution, which is far left movement. That's definitely not good for the people. There's no matter how you look at it. That's just crazy time. Hopefully, it's just a small crazy time will not come back. So Deng Xiaoping came out of it, and he recognized the problem of China. If we don't really go on and develop like a normal country, the party is not going to exist. It's not Deng Xiaoping dare not say anything bad about the Communist Party. He was the old guard. He only knew Communist Party. He knew only Communist, or he thought in his mind, only Communist Party can rule China, can manage China. No one else. Nothing he can come up with. nothing I can come up with 40 years later. I still can't. So realistically, if you want to fix China, you go to the most urgent problem, which is economy. Forget about multi-party. Multi-party necessary, not necessarily better. So let's forget about it. That's very controversial. What's straightforward is it's good, it's noble, or to be rich, right? As opposed to in the old days, you're rich, you're guilty because the proletariat, what's it called, proletariat? What's the
And the bourgeoisie.
yeah, proletariat has to be dominant force. There's a word for it.
I thought it was
Dictatorship of proletariat. So if you're a bourgeois, and you're guilty by having some money, right? But they want to get out of that. That's crazy. That's crazy. So that's Deng Xiaoping's contribution, because it's not easy, because a lot of vested interest in terms of power and money. So he had to, at over 90 years old, he has to still coming out. He's already in retirement. He has to come out. He has to travel thousands of miles just to persuade those old guards that your time's over. Don't be stubborn. We need to move forward. We need to develop the economy. It was not easy. Deng Xiaoping is one person. Of course, person in a high position, but he's already retired. He's very old, and he has to persuade everybody. So it's very hard. And Xi Jinping, fast forward to Xi Jinping. The way I look at it, Xi Jinping is this one that has tried to fight for China's independence from the United States. Because once Deng Xiaoping basically, I wouldn't use the word sell, but he said we have to be realistic. We have to work with the U.S. U.S. extend the offer to us. We have to grab it. Even though that means we have to be subordinate to it, we have to. We have to bide our time. That's what he said. We have to bide our time, hide our strength for now, so we can get all the help we get, investment, technology, and trade opportunities. Then they got into WTO 2001. But China was in a position that the U.S. put them in. I would add, it's not U.S., but the transnational capital originated from U.S. They are the one took full advantage of China's desire to development, and the advantage of low-cost labor. And so they help China. They put money, international, transnational capital. They put money in China. China invests, develop their industry, exports, and China took the proceeds, put it back in Wall Street, which is also transnational capital. So transnational capital, they made money, they made big profit both ends. But they have to keep China in a low-end industry, low-end manufacturing, low value added. But China's developing on and on. After 40 years, that's it. We're not happy anymore with this position that you put us in. We have to go to the next phase. Otherwise, we're going to be stagnant, and we're going to be like a middle-income trap. Oh, that's not what Communist Party wants to be in, because people is going to be restless. They're going to revolt.
So, like,
yeah, let me finish as Xi Jinping, because the way you look at Xi Jinping is like a regular narrative, but the way I look at it, Xi Jinping is trying to take China to the next phase. But in that process, because in the U.S., especially the globalist, transnational capital, they want China to keep in those places to produce socks and T-shirts. But China say we want to produce AI and robotics. So that's a struggle.
So
and Xi Jinping has to
under Bill Clinton, one place, and then continued under George.
Yeah, China has to.
Obama, and then when COVID hit, we kind of pulled back to being more national and having a backlash against globalism. But
I'm gonna connect that to globalism in 5 minutes, in 3 minutes. But right now, from Chinese perspective, they want to get their sovereignty back. So those days biding your time is over. Now we really have to assert ourselves. We have to struggle to break away from the U.S., from under the U.S., to be in parallel to the U.S. So that means we have parallel institutions. We have BRICS. We have another set of things parallel to U.S. dollar and Bretton Woods system. So how do we link the transnational capital with globalism, which is the woke stuff? That's the globalism they put in the U.S. This is globalists, they don't want nation. Globalists and nationalism, they're diametrical opposition. So they want to soften the nation. They want to soften nationalism. So globalism have more room, more control. So they put in the stuff like open borders. Because if you don't have borders, you don't have a nation. That's very simple. And they give you woke and they have DEI to weaken you. Globalists, they don't care if U.S. is weaker, China is stronger, or someone else is strong. They don't care because they're globalists. They put their money anywhere they can make the most profit. So that we kind of line up the battlefront. The internally globalism, nationalism. So Trump was nationalist. There's no question in my mind.
It was a backlash.
Right, of course, it's not easy.
And
You
he
have to.
reached out to people who lost their jobs through the globalists. When so many jobs were outsourced or exported, and that was part of who he was talking.
So China is ruled by nationalists. But before Xi Jinping, I'm not so sure about it. Deng Xiaoping, he didn't really care. He didn't really care where the money comes from, transnational capital or some regular guy that's a foreigner wants to invest in China. Most likely the transnational capital, which is globalist. So Deng Xiaoping didn't care. That's why people liked him. Everybody liked him because he didn't care. But his time was over. His biting time is over. Now it's like a time of recognition, which is Xi Jinping. So we have to hold up the nationalist line. We can no longer work with globalists like we're one of them. We can no longer do that. That's not what China's about.
As you said, one of the problems
What about data? There are a lot of people in the United States who are. Well, I guess my basic question is: should the United States, if it wants to maintain dominance in the AI field, should they be open to
Okay.
AI data centers?
Let me quote Peter Thiel.
No, like build them in the United
Let me
States.
quote
Like
Peter
my
Thiel.
hometown voted out. My hometown just had an election, and everybody that was pro data center got voted out. And they had to recall.
There are multiple factors. There are multiple factors going on in the U.S.
Which was the massive externalities of the data centers.
Yep.
The drain on water, the drain on...
Right, there is environmental concern. Number two, in the U.S., people have the fear of AI for privacy, for some evil stuff AI could do, Terminator. Right. That's higher than in China.
It's not Luddite. There's people who have very concerns about the data centers.
Palantir stuff.
They can't wait to things like central bank digital currencies and the social credit scores and your money won't work outside the 15-minute cities and stuff. You can think if you conspiracy stuff. They talk about digital currencies at the WEF and stuff. It's conspiracy. People are worried about data centers for the externalities like the water usage and things like that.
Well, we got Lake Michigan. We can desalinate. Yeah. So the water stuff is okay. Maybe if you're in the Midwest, you can't divert from the Mississippi River. Okay, certain places in the United States, perhaps I can see a water effect, but we can desalinate. We got tons of water. I mean, we got coast to coast.
That's not the only factor. U.S. has complex geography. Not every place is the same. like Utah, the Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know Utah's geography. Well, you're talking about very optimal, very conducive. The environment's conducive to building data center with water and Lake Michigan, all the stuff. Maybe we have a lot of nuclear power plant, but there are multiple factors. The other factor, I throw out the statistics. Like the poll show in the U.S. When asked, do you think AI is like a benefit outweighs the drawback? It's like 40%. But in China, yeah, 40% agree that AI's benefit always, but China's 80%. So that from people's mind, China's developing data center, all the AI related stuff, they will meet less resistance than the US. Of course, environment is one thing. That's another thing. The third thing I want to remind you with a quote from Peter Thiel. Competition is for losers. We want monopoly. So for the Silicon Valley, what's his Altman, Peter Thiel, Altman, Peter Thiel. Those guys, they will tell the government AI is very important. Its future battleground is AI with China. We can't let China win. We want to win. You got to subsidize us. You got to keep us alive no matter what happens. You got to subsidize us. That's your excuse. That's their excuse. They play out the China threat simply because they themselves are anti-competition.
Was China subsidizing AI?
Not that I know of, because you heard the DeepSeek or another new model. They're not subsidized by the government. Number one, their companies are very small. They managed to develop a new model at very low cost, at a fraction of the U.S. So they wouldn't need the government subsidies. But other aspects of the AI industry, there must be some subsidies. I don't have all the detail, but it's not what you think of the government. The government has a lot of places they have to put money in. AI doesn't seem to be one of the places. Of course, the government, if you want to build like a dam, just for increase the electric production for data center, I can imagine the local government will put up money, just like the railway network.
China's government props up the EV, but then if you look at Tesla's got a ton of support from the United States taxpayer. Yes?
Isn't the whole push for green energy giving
Tesla took some money from years ago, 10 years ago. Paid it.
You know, the biggest benefit that Tesla from the government is what? You know what it is?
It was a subsidy.
It's 100% tariff on Chinese EV. So it's basically
was opposed to
no. It basically shut the competition out. So Tesla has more room.
Came under Biden.
Right, I know. Tesla is not the only one that benefits from it, but because Tesla is the most successful U.S. EV company, it's still that benefit the most.
Has a huge plant in China.
I know, but it's not asymmetrical. It's asymmetrical.
A $7,500 tax incentive to buy.
That was that.
You know, their subsidies come in many forms,
it's not
shapes,
just
and forms.
direct.
It's not it's not like a budget.
Well, we'll make it easy. We'll give you a deal to buy electric.
At one point, there was a cutoff if you sold some number of cars that you didn't get the subsidy. That's why they sold them. Then they changed the law. But this is the U.S. government voting for subsidies.
Part of what Tesla did to make money is they sold credits. You get these carbon credits.
That's right.
We're very
But
much
again,
in the business, and that
they
at
were
some
just-
point in time, you actually kept them afloat.
But
Was being able to do this carbon credit. Do you know what I mean by credit
I
credit?
want to buy a carbon credit.
Yeah, there's a
well,
exchange for credit.
yeah, it's changed. They get
Yeah, of course they get credit, but they still get help from the government in various ways, direct or indirect.
Look at like Intel. That's direct slug of money. So
Yeah, chip. Yeah.
let me ask you- your vote. You know,
What's your metrics? What's your metrics?
why you say
Oh no, why many countries?
We're gonna
See, we have a metrics about freedom, but usually they're free of fear of being a victim of violent crime. It's not part of the metrics. If you put it in, then China's freedom is higher.
But my question is there any
China is unique. China doesn't even think about exporting their system. But when African countries can we learn this aspect from you, that aspect from China, will be willing to share. But they're never saying you can use our system. I'm going to impose a system to you, or try to advocate for our system. They never done that. They don't. I think
what they're promoting it. It's just if it's a good system.
No, I think China, they don't say that explicitly. I think they think that our system, you can't just borrow our system. It doesn't apply to you. You can't just copy from us. We're so unique. If now we're so much better than you, or we're not so unique, our system you just can't use. But some African politician comes to Beijing and say, "Oh, what about your program? This program? I want to know some detail. See if we can implement it in our country." China will share, but China's not the one that say, "Oh, this is good. You got to use it." Or if you don't use it, we're not going to give you the loan. They're not going to do
I'm
that.
not talking about God. It's
That's what I'm saying. The African countries,
push.
right? Never push, never push.
flies was money than you do with Medicare. We'll build you a railroad. We'll build you a water treatment.
Yeah, if you borrow, that's fine. But if you
they're
don't,
not
that's
looking
not our
for
problem.
people to systems change.
Right.
Well, they took rare earth minerals very seriously.
They don't want to.
They had a 10-year plan for their rare earth minerals. They hit on that. They do much more long-term strategic planning than the United States flag. Over 10 years ago, we could have built a much better electric. We haven't done that. We don't plan long-term here.
Yeah.
this is what you just mentioned. Same to the election cycle stuff. So
4 years. Yeah.
like you're like disincentivized from 1,000 different angles from being able to. It was you like the kind of thing that might be like the difference in years
Yes.
is certainly guarantees that.
Yes.
Right. So, which is, you could argue, is kind of an indictment of that kind of system, which is the system that is enabled democracy, whereas the China is, whether it's socialism with Chinese characteristics or capitalism with Chinese characteristics, you still have, like, at the top, it's concentrated power and there's not much. It sounds like they have the bigger actions. The weakness. Yeah, that's a weakness.
Plan. They were going to need rare earths. And
What
it's
kind of
the,
money is
the ability, rare earths are not rare, it's your ability to.
of course, I had some.
Yeah, that's one case that's success. But Chinese government, they made a lot of errors. And the thing is, they're able to admit their mistakes and they turn on the dime and correct it. They can be very agile to implement new policy to replace the old policy that proven wrong. Rare earth is one of the cases that they guessed right, let's put it that way. But they made a lot of mistakes that we don't know because they corrected very quickly. And with the outside, we don't know a lot about China. Of course, the long-term versus short-term.
We did nothing. And then when we need rare earths,
Rare earth was one of the cases that they got it right. But I'm just saying, a lot of things that government got it wrong. We don't know. They got it wrong. I don't remember a lot of details. They just corrected. Or there's a big country. Now, some provinces got it right. If they had a new economic policy, I'd put it one province or two provinces to experiment. If it didn't work out, okay, then we're not going to continue on that. We're going to kill that in two provinces. That's a small mistake. Some bigger mistakes, bigger, wider spread in the country. But believe it or not, that's not what you hear about Chinese Communist Party. They have the tradition of self-criticism. They have a standing committee. They want to have a meeting for everybody, weekly meeting. They just stand up, criticize themselves. That's their tradition, Communist Party tradition. What we hear is Mao used that meeting to hit his opponents, to try to get their opponents like in deep trouble, because now criticizing yourself is kind of like handing the gun to your opponent to shoot you, right? But that's a special case. Mao capitalized on that. He took advantage of it. It was not cool to do that, but actually he took advantage of good tradition, which is the party members that criticize themselves in a meeting, so they can lessons learned and other comrades will not make the same mistake that I made. And that you may get credit for it. That's a good tradition.
Because go through a process. It works very well, but it doesn't.
Because law is the adversarial kind of business.
Well, but they
You have a-
good. You if you're manufacturing cars, you see a problem,
Right.
fix it. You're
Right.
a hero.
Yeah.
But in government, everybody wants to look good. I think.
In court, also lawyer mentality is law is set up as an adversarial
Yeah.
situation. You always have an adversary. You always fight. That's the checks and balance. That's the spirit of the system. China doesn't have that tradition,
Right.
so it's a better fit for engineering. Defend something. Yeah, it's about offense, defense. That's as opposed to engineering. We put our heads together to solve a problem. That's engineering.
Well, we don't really need electric vehicles. We're going to get smart vehicles, and they're going to be electric. Yes, and the reason one major issue in America is you don't have a long network of charging stations, right?
Right.
You need it. China does. Europe's going to get them. We're going to be the last ones to get South America.
I disagree. I think we're actually doing. We got a long way to go, but I think we've actually got smart. I don't think you're.
I think China will go ahead.
China makes it.
China, yeah.
I don't know.
If we're wanting people to buy electric vehicles, we have to have, just like gas stations,
Well, like Walmart. Walmart evidently has programs for charging.
It seems to
Why
take a long
couldn't
time.
the big three, if they wanted to go, if
They
wanted,
could.
you could have had Ford, General Motors, and it was what Chrysler, but now it's Sterling or whatever. It's that sort of thing. You just can't get it goddamn done.
I think there's curious positives to have some of these issues. I mean, for example, when we attribute the Chinese grip on rare processing to some kind of far-sighted, what are we actually saying? Are we saying that 50 years ago, when somebody in China said, "Now we're going to lose money at this. We're going to be throwing money away by the billions." But although it makes no sense whatsoever, let's build up our rare earth processing so that 50 years from now, we'll be able to have the whip hand over the United States. I don't think anything like that happens. It's too easy. It's too far-fetched. I think that when they built those rare earth processing plants, they did so because it seemed like a good idea at the time. It seemed profitable. I think you have to, for some purposes, you have to abstract from the geopolitical militaristic, because it's natural under a market, an international market system, for a pattern of trade to take place that nobody planned because of comparative advantage. It makes more sense that it may well have been. I'm saying we do not have evidence to refute the following proposition. It was entirely right and proper and efficient that the US not build up rare earth processing because they knew that they could import rare earths from China.
That's my understanding too. At the time, China was in the 1970s. They didn't have much going on for them. Well, this is rare earth, and we have rare earth, and other countries, they don't have much developed rare earth. It was not high demand at the time, but the opportunity, they can make money. We don't have, well, you're going to make money from machinery? No, we don't have nothing for that. but we have rare earth. Other countries kind of need someone else do it for them because it's an environmental issue.
Yeah, I think.
And the workers get polluted, they get sick. But we Chinese people, we're poor. So poor people, they can endure that.
It's not so much looking ahead; it's the lack of regulations.
It's not looking ahead. I agree with. That's why I understand what David says. What I understanding too, because at the time that's a way to make money. A lot of poor people, they're not that concerned about their health. They just want to put food on the table. But the U.S., well, it's not doesn't pay to do that. We could put food on the table. We could get on welfare. Why should I put myself in harm with that chemical to work on rare earth? But Chinese people, given the condition, it pays for them to do that, and they have nothing else going on for them. But lo and behold, they have decades of accumulation of expertise and equipment, all this stuff. And also they make it better so it's not as polluting, it's not as harmful, dangerous to the workers. So now here we are, it's today. Now, yeah, at the time we didn't have, the world didn't have this trade war issue, especially between China and the US. So the US, we have secure supply and we don't have to deal with all the problems. So why don't we? It's cheap from China and we don't have to deal with the environment, all the issues. Well, China said, well, that's the only thing we have got going for us. So
I just have a small lecture. For much of the second half of the 20th century, the United States controlled the market for elements. After prospectors discovered them in Mountain Pass, California, in 1909. China recognized the strategic value of rare earths, and starting in the 1960s, Chinese executives visited Mountain Pass several times, says Mark Smith, who was CEO at Moly, a former rare earth processing company at the Mountain Pass mine. We toured them, we explained what we do, we allowed them to take pictures and everything else. They took it back to China, Smith says, who gave tours of Molycorp to Chinese visitors in the 1980s and 90s. Chinese refineries then improved on the technology, taking advantage of cheap electricity in China. Hundreds of lucrative mining and processing firms in the country popped up to service mostly domestic demand for rare earths. The industry was highly unregulated and chaotic as small-scale private mines and refineries competed against one another, undercutting each other's profits. Price.
Okay, well,
This sounds like a lot of nonsense, actually.
I'm reading it though.
Yeah, I know you are. But it still sounds like, even with your dulcet tones, it still sounds like a lot of nonsense. I mean, when you immediately go wrong when you start saying China did this or China planned 50 years ahead to do this, because nations don't do things, particular individuals. It may be that we're saying that the people in Beijing, they had a little rare earth committee and they said, we'll get some of our companies that are mining to go over to the United States, pick up a few tricks, come back and improve it. Then 50 years from now, 100 years from now, we'll be able to have a big.
at the same time, they got three other things wrong. You know what I'm saying? They just got lucky on that one,
Right.
even though that was the case. I agree with David. It's probably not entirely that case. They probably see the strategic value 5 years down the road. They're not going to foresee 40 years later, semiconductor use a lot of rare earth and F-35 rare earth. They couldn't possibly see that.
First, I would point out that a lot of these. Will you shut up?
I need to go.
Okay, sure. I didn't mean.
See ya.
So next meeting is the 31st of July, and it is this guy.
Justin.
Take it easy, Joe.
Tucker.
Sucker.
Yeah, about the another. Okay, we're talking about go ahead.
You know, there is another aspect to this, and that is this wouldn't be an issue except for the world-dominating urge of the American class, that they see any prosperity anywhere in the world as a threat. instead of seeing it as an opportunity, because if other countries get richer, that's more opportunities to trade and get rich ourselves, which would be one way to look at it. You know, free trade benefits everybody, or at least all broad.
Not every,
It doesn't benefit everybody. It's true.
different classes, different class interests.
If you join the United States,
But you know, because the US has made this kind of decision politically, China is growing in politics. Therefore, we must go to war with them. So, like, that's the logic.
That's one group of people try to fool another group of people. It's a hoodwinking. But not everybody believes that.
This is one offshoot of the American society. Well, it wouldn't work to be deluded, thinking that they already dominate. It's that crazy. It's not just what we would like to do. Well, it's if we lift our finger, we can. You know, the number of people looking at this Iran war, the number of people in their comments. When you get away from the skeptic people, usual suspects. You get people saying, why don't we just go in there and finish them off? Oh, a brilliant idea. Nobody thought of that in the world.
USA.
The fact is they have defeated you militarily because you don't know what you're doing, and everything you can think of trying is not going to work. That's the fact of the matter. Why can't you get that through your thick skull? The US does not rule the world. You know,
But they want to drum up the war because some transnational capital, they're making money. The longer the war drags on, the more money they make. Also,
the slump is going to be so bad.
Also, the war is a mechanism to have control on population. The globalist, transnational capital, they're all about control. See, so they do want war. So anything they drum up the war, they will do. They will say. That doesn't mean they believe it. They believe in profit, but people will buy that lie. So that's why they say it.
Bye-bye.
Also, the long-term, short-term thing is not, well, it's a conceptually, it seems like a perfect explanation, but actually details more of profit or on profit-driven or non-profit-driven. For example, high-speed railroad. There are a lot of lines China is losing money, but they will still do it because they have different mindset. Making money out of the passengers is not it's not a priority. But in the U.S. system, the British system, one of the reasons they haven't built a lot of railroads is because they want to calculate. They want to make sure they can make a profit before they do it. Yeah. That's why they can't do it because there's a lot of automobiles, a lot of highways. But Chinese will do it anyway.
It's also just the red tape.
Right. True. That's one big factor. But China would do it anyway because they have other reasons. They don't. The profitability is not the dominant reason. They have other reasons. So they will do a lot in a lot of cases. Like they have a high-speed railroad up to the Tibetan so-called plateau.
Right.
It can't possibly make money, but they want to do it because why? They want to have a easy transportation to Tibet.
They will come.
No, well, that too. But even though they don't come, Tibet, if you build a railway, easier for you to hold Tibet, keep it in your territory because you can have easier communication, transportation with them for civilians in the wartime, for troops or
so
supplies.
It's like empire maintenance.
Right, something like that.
All right, I gotta go.
All right,
see you. Happy 4th of July.
You too.
American people.
250 years.
I'll give you my
on your bio in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
250 years.
Oh, 250. Well, I start the founding of America actually starts earlier.
But we're talking about July 4th, right?
250.
Huh?
250.
250. What's that?
It's just a different way of saying.
It's an illiterate way of saying.
Yeah. yeah. So, is China going to take over everything?
Well, no. The Chinese are going to take things that they want.
No.
Ideas. By the way, there is a a genre of China commentary, which is that China, A, is thinking evil, B, is about to collapse. The real head of this is Gordon Chang.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a
Early
complete
20s,
idiot.
over 20
Or
years.
rather, he's making money.
Peter
telling a lot of people what
Peter Zan.
Oh, he's another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh well, they keep waiting.
Yeah, but
They
now
can
he
keep waiting.
started on demographics, right? Peter, what's his name?
Peter Zan. Peter Zion.
But then he started specializing in the demographics of China because they found that that's what people could hear. So there are people who want to hear this, and I suppose these people could just be acting out of self-interest.
But yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you just have to discount people like China.
But there's a cycle, right? We all know like human has a cycle and nations have cycles. China went through many cycles, but the difference between China and other civilizations, they went through many cycles, they're still there, as opposed to European, the Egyptian, the Mesopotamia. They're different because every time there's an upheaval, the population inflow, outflow, they will replace or greatly replace the current population. So if you study the genetics, you can see the trace. But China is a box in itself. No matter what happens, the empire cycle, ups and downs, change of dynasty, the same population, same culture, same blood. Because blood links to culture, culture links to language. That makes the people. That makes the ethnicity, ethnic group. So that's what China is a stable civilization, stable situation, as opposed to other civilizations like Europe.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's what you're saying is continuity.
Not government, but the civilization, the culture, the language.
Oh, but
Government changes.
Europe has civilization and culture, which is hard for the past 2,000 years. Right? I mean, it's just that it's been politically divided. But even there, you can say that there are certain broad, like Northern Europe, it's Germanic and so on, Latin. So there's a great continuity. I mean, we all know about Julius Caesar. We all know about Plato.
Yeah, the Rome, they went north. They went to Britain. They replaced a lot of blood. And the Scandinavians, the Vikings, they come down, and they went to Russia. And Mongolians, they went to Russia. China doesn't have that. Mongolians went to China. They became Chinese. Their blood only accounted for like 5% genetics. But they go to Europe. They can replace, wipe out. The Egyptians today are not Egyptians when they build the pyramids. That's what I'm talking about. But Chinese today, it's the same blood as those that built the Great Wall or even before. That's what I'm talking. That's the difference. Yeah, look into that.
I suspect you're wrong. So I know. Did you see that guy? There's this guy. I forget his name. He's a Palestinian American.
Male. Oh, here. Okay, male.
What's that?
Male.
Yeah. And he's I like him, you know, but he's not an intellectual. He's like an ordinary working man. But he said I went to have this 20.
What is he, like a YouTuber?
Yeah, he's got quite a number. I forget his name. But I don't know. And it's clear. It's just one stuff. Very it sounds almost like a fairy tale. No, think of it. I think it's absolutely true. I went and had this DNA test. He's from Palestine, right? And they identified, because now, of course, they're getting better and better. They can find old skeletons 20,000 years ago. They can find the DNA. Actually, so he says, you know, he's a Palestinian from, I forget where he's from, somewhere. So we went to 23. Is that it? Or is it somewhat maybe? Anyway, whatever.
Someone make it.
So they need as the great majority of classes had no Palestinian ancestors. So that just from you, ancestors never went to Palestine, except in their imagination when they converted to Judaism. That's the Ashkenazim, they're converts. No, not all, 90% of them. Just if you look at the DNA, they're just converts. And what I said since I realised this was since that guy, hey,
Hello.
so
You're late.
you missed all the good bits.
You missed the thunders. Well, I'm sure you had thunders somewhere.
You never get enough chance to hear it. So, but anyway,
Where recorded?
there's this guy Walter Block who's libertarian,
Just gonna mention. Yeah,
very not very, and he was a close friend of mine. When I first met him, he was in the company. And but anyway, he argues that the Jews have a right to Palestine because they were there. So my argument has been since that you might have seen me say something is so who owns these Jewish residences?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember
Indians.
that. Yep.
Obviously not the Jews.
Right.
Who was there? So it's the I'm doing some guessing rough. It's the Iroquois, right? The Indian from Red Indian from what's now York, and found them all. Can't convince.
And their membership.
No, Jewish.
And I noticed that he
Still,
never had a response to it.
no. I think it was actually he's still trying to work it out.
Yeah, you can't. The other experiment in my head was like, okay, they're going to say that they speak. If you go to any like Israel critical conversation on YouTube, whatever the topic is, it'll be like 1,000 years ago, and it's just like, it's clever sometimes the way they do it. But the thought experiment in my head was, oh, so if we say that we dug deeper, it's 1,000 years old, and it's not you guys will just give up. Which is why they have multiple angles of interpretation, and one of them is, and I remember seeing it at the time, and it might have even been in the email threads, is just how uncivilized and barbaric and stuff they are. The standard, well, we can just dehumanize them, we dehumanize them. Same standing. So, consideration. They almost as if by their very behavior, by their very nature, they have not achieved it or they have forfeited it. And it's like, so, like, yeah, what if they found people?
Well, but also, who are present senators? Let's suppose there was a king's
Genetics makes, I'm speaking from the perspective of the group. For each one of us, uh, like Chinese, they have, if you go to South, they still have 70% of the genes for, as the Yellow River Basin, right? So it's pretty much, if they go to Yellow River Basin people, they have probably 90%. I'm not talking about individual. Eric Mao, he has 70% this, and just the population, 70%, they have 100%. That sort of thing. That's my point. Of course, individually, they can have a very clear lineage, almost 100%. But I'm talking about the group, right? One time, like 20 some years ago, I was in like a coffee shop, like a breakfast place. The waitress said, I came over. She said, I'm Assyrian. At the time I don't know, I know Syria. She said, no, it's not Syria. It's Assyrian. I'm Assyrian. So you can start running to waitress in Chicago.
She said that of herself.
Yeah, right. She said Assyria. At the time, I didn't know. I said, oh, is that Syria? So she said, no, it's Assyria. It's a very old, ancient people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I learned you can run into people who have clear lineage,
yes,
but the group is not like that.
That takes me back to it was a huge best in, I guess, the 60s, and it had this. It believed me at that time, which at that time was predominantly white. These huge audience. This book changed your life.
What was that about?
It's a novel. It's comic. It's funny.
That is where the expression comes from.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You made it up. Yeah. And it's set. I think it's set in the U.S. Air Force, in Europe. I think in the Second World War. Might be wrong. Certainly fairly recently, in 1960. Sure. And anyway, the main character, it mentions one of the things about the humour in Cashman is it's all based on repetition. It keeps on making the same point until you start thinking it's funny. For instance,
that's what I like. That's what I do.
There's a guy
at home, not outside. Like dad jokes.
There's one guy, and this you will think this is the worst, most feeble joke you've ever. Right. There's a guy in Cashman character whose name is Major.
I kind of
That's
heard.
what ran in the U.S. Air Force. He was.
Major.
Major.
Wanted it to be first.
Well, to me, repetition itself is funny. It's hilarious. But for some of you, it's an old joke. No, the way I repeat it, it's a good joke. And the more I repeat it, repetition itself is funny.
It's got all these completely dumb and completely obvious things. This is why it changes your life. I mean, I'm trying to. I haven't read it since whenever it was, 60. But read it soon after it came out because everybody was reading it. But it's got things like he wants to leave the Air Force and become a chief. I asked why. He says because people try to kill him. Because as he flies over to Boston,
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it says people trying to kill him. And eventually this goes back and forth a few times. And I said, well, it's nothing personal.
It's business. Right. Or drop on. I'll kill you first.
Is that any consolation? You know, they're trying to kill me. So it's just, I don't care that they're trying to kill everybody else who drops bombs on them. But, you know, so it's all on its own very obvious level. But and it's repetition, crude repetition. And you get to think after you've read something several times that it's funny. And it is funny. It's a curious,
I like that kind of.
it's a curious,
I like that kind of.
curious type of humor.
It
brings out the absurdity of some of the things.
So the book is called Catch-22. I'll look it up.
Joseph Heller.
I'll look it up.
He didn't write another novel. That was his first novel.
Isn't that one of those books?
He didn't write
It's standard.
a novel for a long time.
Oh, really?
It was
I
like
didn't
20
grow up in
years.
this country.
It was like 20 years or something before he wrote a novel. And everybody made a great fuss about it. I never read it. I can't believe it could be like Catch-22.
So I have a question I have to ask you guys. I think that's a good time to ask. So we can, because it's a smaller group, we don't have to be holding back or feel inhibited.
Yeah, we're the experts. We're actually.
No, I want your sentiment.
We can't be completely.
I want to. Well, okay. Well, I'm a little delusional, but it's wishful thinking. Let's put it that way. But I think it's so relative compared to we have a lot of people here. Now we have fewer people. You want to turn off the recording so you're more comfortable? Oh, you don't know the question yet. You don't know the question yet.
Yeah, it depends.
Okay, I think that's, I hear you guys argue with vigor about Israelis. Do they have legitimate claim on the land? I mean, my question is very simple. Why do you care? You're not Israeli. You're not Palestinian. Why do you care like with vigor? Well, I care a little bit. Honestly, I really don't care. But I'm the other extreme. I'm not saying I'm normal. But if I'm normal, I will care a little bit, but not as much as you guys. So I wonder why you guys care so much. Because they're both bad. To me, they're both bad. They both pose a danger to certain people. Both sides, the Arab side or Palestinian side or Israel side. Okay, let's put it aside. That's not the question. The question is, to me, okay, I'm not trying to convince you. To me, they're both bad, okay? I'm not afraid to say that, okay? You don't have to agree. I don't expect you to agree. I don't want you to agree.
But again, your question is why?
My question, why do you care? Why do you care? You're not either side. You're not either side, right? You care because justice? Or because, but you care, everybody cares about justice. I care about justice. But to me, the way you care about if justice is the only reason, I think it's a little overstated. There must be some other reason. I like to know. I'm so curious.
I think there's two. To me, because I'm very conscious of my own intellectual journey with regard to Palestine. So I'll tell you a bit about that in a second. But I would just say as a generalization, there are two things. First of all, there are people being wiped out, murdered in large numbers, and they're totally innocent. And insofar as they're guilty of anything, it's hitting back at the people murdered, nothing else. Right? So that's one thing. Secondly, this is all bound up with the policies of the government under which I live, which is the British government. Now it's the US government, the American. And the British government, see, I lived through 1956, the Suez Crisis. And the Suez Crisis, what happened was this, and this is not a caricature or a satire, this is what happened. we now know 3 countries, the governments of 3 countries, Britain, France, and Israel, decided what had happened was a bit earlier than this. NASA was then the Egypt, nationalized the Suez Canal, which had been a British engineering thing, and was part of the British Empire. And of course, it's vitally important because it makes you go. You don't have to go around the Cape of Good.
So Sinai Peninsula, right?
Which is real prize, prize. But so after that, NASA, the Britain, Israel, and France decided to fake. They had some kind of, I forget the whole story. They tried to completely false. So I remember all the Egypt. Yeah, Egypt. Basically, trying to get this.
Isn't that the Brits and the French attacked? They didn't get the U.S.'s consent. The U.S. kind of upset about it. Something like
the US, that. Actually, I remember very clearly, the US
Eisenhower.
had a very dim view of this. It was not in the least bit from Israel. People forget this. So somebody in Tel Aviv said, hey, what's going wrong? But we've got to put a stop to that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you can just see it. But anyway, so that was my introduction to this whole issue. And the British press, at the time it happened, they were full of this stuff about Israel and the Arabs, because they always describe these people as the Arabs, but they're not Arabs. They're just Arabic speaking. By the way, you will find that Egyptians are mostly
Mostly?
They're not Arabs. You see, the Arab conquest.
They could be mixed with a lot of different people. Influx of
Arabs did not migrate in large numbers into the lands they conquered. They were just the thin strata, upper stratum of the second class. In fact, they chose to keep the existing class. And they just said to the existing, we're above you. You go on running things. And so the people in Morocco, Arabs, they're Berbers, you know.
They're low.
People in Egypt, they're Egyptians. They're Arabic speaking because they Islam. But anyway, yeah. So I remember all that, and then it kept coming into the news. This business. I thought, and I generally thought the Israeli case seems. So, but then when I was at Hull University, studying in '67, there was a guy there who was quite a well-known actor for a big academic. Is so, and actually has an interesting history because his father was an Austrian Jew that converted to Islam and became a monarchist. His son was Thomas. I heard him give a few talks, and I thought, well, that was interesting.
You the soft spot for
That was much later.
connection with the Palestinian situation.
Yeah,
Because you're British, because you're Scottish, you're looking at the what British did. Because from the Scottish standpoint, is that if you drill a little deeper, because you're looking at it as a outside, as a third party. You're not involved yourself because you're not English. Would it be fair to say that?
Are a bit mixed. because my real mother was English. Actually, my step was English. But my father, as far as I know, I'm assuming the guy knew as my father. My I think he's this Israeli historian. But the first, when the archives
Something to do with their psychology They want to do something drastic, so they sin to the extreme that they will encounter huge pushback. Then the two sides will create like a what's it called, apocalypse, and the Jesus Christ will come, not Jesus Christ, but whatever Messiah will come back.
Now we're getting
It's an
into
eschatology.
Christians.
I mean, that could be the deepest motivation. Well, what you say, well, the brutality, all the thing, but the deepest theory, the base, the ground is that. Could it be? I'm asking you a question.
Jews came over from Europe.
Uh,
You don't have to
There had been
answer?
earlier waves of Jewish immigration. There had been tension between Jews. So I mentioned very briefly George Orwell, the curse of Americans pronounce custom, because if they see it's a Jew. So cursed one. They agreed on absolutely everything except the issue of Zionism. And I didn't make enough of an issue of this in my book on George Orwell, which I would do if I was still because today. Make more. That's the one thing they disagreed on, because Koestler went out to Palestine in the 1920s. They call it the Zionists call it the first Aliyah. Aliyah is Jews going to Palestine. Jews going to Israel. But anyway, so what happened was, as a result of these operations by these gangs, four or five gangs, but the biggest was, and they were all in close contact.
Think here.
Yeah, and all these refugees started turning, and so this is what the Palestinians and the Arab world, Arabic-speaking world generally calls the anyway, Arabic word for catastrophe.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So
I mean, is it that crowded that they couldn't just have
this was the part of Palestine given to the Jews in the settlement that was done by the UN. The UN said, well, the Jews have got about 5% of the population of this country, whereas the Palestinians have 95%. So it's only fair to divide 50-50.
I mean, was it really?
What about you?
No.
What's your?
They couldn't just come in and build homes, or
They couldn't
the
be
apartments.
ordinary, decent people. They weren't their sons. And yeah, I mean, but you could think of the same about you could say the same about some of the Europeans who came to this group.
What did they do?
Well, they've been here before them. And in many cases, these people treated together in a fashion.
So a follow-up question. So you have this humanitarian sense of justice, humanitarian sense, but do you have the same sympathy or attention to other people or other group that have the same level of suffering or worse? Do you pay them the same attention, or there's a special tie between you and that region?
No, I mean, I think the point is, I can't think of another case where it's really controversial what happened. I mean, there have been genocides, like the one, was that place in East Africa, was that big, the Tutsi? Rwanda, yeah. I mean, that was terrible. But everybody knew it was going on. Nobody said, oh,
I see. I see.
You knew how much the sort of, whichever way that attacked the Tutsi, it was acknowledged by everybody in the world. Nobody, some people said that business. But in fact, nobody said, let's send billions of dollars a day over to the people who are doing this, whereas that's what we've got here in the United States today.
I think to piggyback David's answer, which is a lot of this stuff is tied up with the current government here in the States. To the extent that you can cause effect. So, yeah.
Same vigor arguing if it were in Vietnam, like in the 60s and 70s, because the U.S. is not there's no business. U.S. has no business there. So like thousands of miles away, and U.S. has spent a lot of money and a lot of people die, soldiers die.
I can't.
So would you have the same vigor or argue in the same vigor?
I can't know because it's factual.
I'm trying to put the. I'm trying to make a difference.
I so these is hard to get the situation in the Israel-Palestine issue. Interesting. That's really that I just talking simple syllogism that precedent sees weapons of mass destruction. Saddam Hussein is oppressing his people, and we have the means and the opportunity to deliver freedom to those people and to get rid of the weapons of mass destruction. That's a valid argument. It's not a sound argument. It's, premises of weapons of mass destruction is garbage, and situation. That was a mistake, but I could have been suckered in with like a domino theory, like we need to go in there because it wasn't the domino theory. To prevent the spread of communism.
Okay, know what you know.
We're really scared of communism.
Knowing what you know about Vietnam, right? All the truth after 40, 50, 70, 60 years, we know a lot of truth. So knowing what you know now, you're the current more mature age, put you back in the late 1960s, early 1970s. Would you feel the same, would you be worked up like you're worked up by the Israeli-Palestinian situation with regard to Vietnam? I'm trying to put all the factors equal to see what's different.
Yeah, I get it. Maybe. See, part of the issue is, if somebody, let's say, I don't know. Let me do a hypothetical. There's this populous country. I think it used to be China. From today it's India,
Sure.
China. So let's say India, because we have retarded libertarians who want to open the borders. Let's say they get their way and we open the borders, and I don't know, 100,000 Indians, 100 Indians come in, and they become the predominant influential foreign diaspora in the country. They displace Jewish interests or Zionist interests. They displace it as the one that has commandeered our foreign policy, commandeered our government.
Right.
And let's say they start running their mouth about something we need to do with regard to China, something we need to do with regard to their, enemies in Pakistan, or we need to help them take back Kashmir or some crap like that. I'm pretty sure I'd be starting to look at them in the same way that I look at the current neocon Zionist interest. I'd start looking at them the exact same way, like, who the hell are you? And then probably, at least to some degree, figure out what did actually happen. How did Pakistan, and what is Kashmir, and how, was it 3,000 years ago that it was really these people versus that people? Like, I would be doing the same thing if it was like an Indian diaspora, hypothetically a Chinese diaspora, right? It just happens right now that it is a Jewish Zionist diaspora.
Yeah. So,
and
are you telling
for
me
decades and decades and decades? It's for numerous decades now. We're sending billions of dollars. We're making enemies all over the globe.
Are you saying
that's all bullshit, man?
what I'm hearing is if it were Indian versus Sri Lanka, Indian versus Pakistan situation,
Right.
it's just different names instead of Israel and Palestine. It's a different name. You will have the same emotionally evolved as this situation.
Because the fundamental issue to my mind is we're not sovereign. And that is the most critical issue. We're not sovereign.
Okay.
And we need to fix that.
So you're a little different than David, because David, because he's
different.
Because he's
maybe
he's tied to he told me his emotional level. You're telling me your intellectual level. So I wonder if you have an emotional level as well. I'm sure David has an intellectual. I'm sure David has an intellectual level, but he told me about emotional. Intellectual level is easier for me to understand. I don't need to put myself in his head to understand intellectual level, because we can share the same facts and stuff, reason. It's more easy. But he gave me his emotional level, so as if I was in his head for a while. So but you gave me the intellectual level. But I wonder if I can get into your head. You give me your emotional level. If there's a level.
I think I kind of did a reasonably good job. Even
no, it's not good or bad. Well, I'm looking for something that David gave me the first try. I didn't ask for it. He gave me exactly what I was looking for. Yeah. But you didn't. So I have to try one more time. Do you have an emotional level that you can share, or you don't have it?
I thought I did.
No, you're talking about intellectual level. You look into the facts, you analyze this thing, and then you decide whether you should argue or get involved. But you didn't tell me that David gave me the intellectual. He's from Britain. It was geographically kind of closer, and the Britain was involved directly. Now he's an American. It's kind of Israel. It's kind of tied together. But because he originally from Britain, he got into that area. He has a lot of knowledge. He saw a lot of injustice when he was very young. And you didn't tell me those things. You just say, "Oh well, now I'm older. If I was 20 years younger, I may get hooked wind." But that's not emotional level. It's given your maturity, given your intellect, and do you have emotional level? You tell me all the intellectual level, but I want to live in your head for a while, get your emotional level.
Yeah,
but you don't have. That's fine. You don't have it. You don't have it. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to get it.
It's just I understand to communicate.
No, you didn't fail. You don't have it. You don't have it.
No,
Tell me a more different way. Come on.
Look, I mean, when I think about it, it makes me too much. It makes
that's right. That's
seemingly when I think about how foreign policy apparatus has been commandeered, because Thomas Massey and why Justin is I think it might be a good thing that Justin Massey was nuked by likes of AIPAC. Are you smoking? So when they can just snap their fingers, spend $32 million, and take out the best congressman we have, literally he was the best we had at that time, the best, the most libertarian there, and they saw him as, oh, he's not on our AIPAC. and so we're going to nuke him. And then they did, and they succeeded because they duped a bunch of Fox News watching boomers to think he might have been a secret Democrat or he wasn't sufficiently allied with Trump or whatever the hell they told him. Like, that's what happens when they want to get their way, so that we keep sending money and military complex industrial crap over to they fight their wars, and then we piss off a bunch of their enemies, so that we have to fight them over there so that we don't fight them over here. Well, if we never fought them over there, we wouldn't have to fight them over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like all this bullshit and the loss of sovereignty and the control that they have, like that's what makes me the most angry. That's why a lot of these people will say, if you look at the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, I think it's called the IHRA. They have like a working definition of anti-Semitism, right? Because this is anti-Semitism. They have the working definition because it can never be a final. They need to be able to tell you what else is going to be anti-Semitism in the future, because it's the hate that mutates, as Rick to Candace Owens. So you have the IHRA that one of their metrics for anti-Semitism is if you hold like Israel or Jews or to one standard that you don't hold other countries or groups to. Like, so for example, if you focus so much on Israel, Zionism, Jews, like, oh, that's anti-Semitic, and it's like, how about maybe it's because like we give you guys money. Yeah. India. So focusing on them first, and as the most important thing, and they want to make it like so. Does that give you a little bit more of a?
Yeah. I tie that to other things you talked about. I know you for a while, right?
Yeah.
The wokeism, feminism. I tied to that as well. Although we only talk about geopolitics in that region, I tied to your reasoning and other things, and that what makes you angry, what makes you feel unjust, what works for you, certain things. I kind of tie them all together. I kind of get a better picture. Different from David. David is more, I don't know. He's because his region, because he's
got the richer
his origin
background.
Yeah, his origin. You're different. Yeah. So that I know.
We're different from each other, right?
Well, I'm just trying to get, because I can't say between two of you represent all of them. No, but at least I got two great samples. I'm happy to. I feel like go home with some.
Just to see. There was a big change in a lot of people's thinking after the Soviet ceased. And then there was a period, a year or so, that were super arguments, tense. But most
Only lasts 1 year.
this was
Bill Clinton. If they can't say Austria promised to be neutral, permanent. So there's no, they have no reason. But they can always go back. I mean, if they don't hold the promise to be neutral, Soviet can always go back very quickly, quicker than the West.
So I would say this also. So I think I was influenced at this time. I was a socialist in the 60s. And I was certainly wouldn't have been in support, Britain supporting the US. However, I think I was influenced by this picture of the Soviet Union actually expanding. I mean, they got China. That was interpreted.
That's a big.
That was interpreted in Britain as being pure gain for the Soviet Union.
That's a big.
Might be some friction between China and the Soviet Union. Nobody thought that. So when people started saying that, people we laughed, you know. So eventually, you know, but just
Kind of different, like guerrilla.
it was
Guerrilla thing.
it was
It's not a government.
Literally, it was the but so the general view name for the press is the name the American soldiers had picked up from something.
Yeah, Kong means going. That's like Chinese.
And so, but I was much less. I personally took the view that we shouldn't support that. So, by the way, it's after the Americans left, the war went on for some years. So far more people died after the time. Of course, so we don't trust. I mean, it's understandable since it was a genuine civil war. People who were going to go fighting to live, not just short.
Like Vietnam, look at the shape. It's narrow, but it's long. So there are big differences between North and South. They're different countries. So you put together like French was, oh, now you're one country. But historically, they're different countries.
Well,
Of course, they have a civil war. Right?
So it's,
Yeah, of course.
this
It's
is a
but
point I made at the time.
the colonies.
What is it's been the same.
Yeah.
It's all part of French.
Yeah, you go to India. British went into India, put them into one country. That before India was many countries. It's not one country, not even one language, right? But the colonialism, they tend to do that.
There were many.
They put
First of all, there were many different languages.
Yeah, I know.
North and south. But anyway.
But the same language, Cambodia, they're very close. Laos, so they're not the same country. So in that region, it's different from Europe. In Asia, it's different. Just because it's the same language, it doesn't mean as much. As the French is the same language, the Germans is the same language. It means a little different. Because they are very similar. Even in border regions of China, the same language. It doesn't mean anything. In the same border region of Korea, the same language. Doesn't mean they have to be the same country. There's something else. The historical reasons, different kingdoms. And
I think most of us, because the only people who were it's occasionally, but they but I found myself defending but anyway, there was this very real perception that Soviet was gradually extending, and when it had a new piece of territory, but the people believed this.
Yeah, I was young at the time. I felt the impression that Soviet was going up, was rising in power until Afghanistan. Up until like the late 70s, until they bogged down Afghanistan. Well, not at the very beginning, like in middle of the 10 years. Oh, there's all Soviets they were exhausted. Grenada is Reagan. Yeah, it's a Caribbean. Yeah, probably communists. They at least they want to tell you that. They want to legitimize it. They call it communist. 60s, 80s.
It was Reagan.
Reagan. It's like they have a transition, have a new government that's left wing. So that's the pretext that we have to correct.
Yeah, so I was very much influenced, and yes, I was very much influenced by the Soviet Union was increasing its power. You've met Dave Stanley. I remember having a conversation with Dave Stanley. Oh, no, there was a meeting, a discussion meeting with the Steele. I said, could just make it the rising capitalist power. So the declining capitalist is no, because it seems to fall from Dave Stanley. That's it's expensive. So they only gave me a fact. Of course, it was true. The United States at that time was expensive.
But people it wasn't widely known, right? But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, people went back and said, oh yeah, as it turned out, we were stronger actually, we just didn't realize it or didn't have clear evidence of it. We were hooked by the Soviet.
The ruling group like to play up.
True, so they get more budget, they can wage.
They like to play up.
Right.
We need books.
Yeah, today the China the same thing.
Yeah.
Those generals they went to Congress, so those committee they will say, "Oh, we need more budget because
Except that
China's."
now the US is weak, objectively weak.
Because we're burning all our stock.
There you go
In
again.
the country, we're not allowed to
Right.
do this.
But they have no business in East Asia, West Pacific. But they insist on going. I mean, of course, it's going to cost you money, and it's because with the distance. Of course, you're weakened with the distance. I mean, it's not because you're not spending enough money. It's just not a good deal. But they insist because that's their job. It's a career. They want to have budget. Well, is it really going to be 1.5 trillion for 2027? That's scary. I mean, how can
Military budget?
yeah, this year is like just under 1 trillion. What year the U.S. will?
All these plans are going to be cancelled.
Yeah, but if not 1.5 trillion, right? It's inconceivable. But they will get 1.2 trillion. That's still very large. Very large in number, very large in increase.
Because dollar is
Yeah, that's not good. I don't like
It's
that.
actually really good against the
Yeah, because they're all bad. They're all bad. But you look at dollar versus gold, right? Because they're all bad. They all have problems. They all are weak. They're all stupid. They all make wrong policies to benefit the transnational capital, but at the expense of the average people. They all do the same thing. That's why they're all bad. But you can compare dollar to something more concrete, more objective, which is gold, then you can see what is it declining. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, I take no joy saying that. I mean,
Donald's.
I do believe Donald Trump is Donald Trump's making a fortune. Right? His portfolio,
I read that.
those trades,
I think that's what this
insider trading, like Nancy Pelosi kind of deal.
Yeah.
He gets to joke the market. Today it's up, tomorrow's down, or this morning it's up, this afternoon it's down. He's just trading over there.
And I don't think he's the only.
Yeah, true. His sons and all the other Congress people and
So there's
Lindsey Graham, or I don't know.
there's a buddy of mine. He's in Pennsylvania. And our two. Sure. Three. Yeah, sure.
bar.
I find it crazy pants.
He's being satiric.
No, he legit believes it. He legit believes it. This is thing, text. I don't think.
They're honest and good.
One of the things that comes up, I can't. One of the things that comes up. You might.
These are good.
The thing that comes up is really
media. Someone said the media is honest. You said it's nothing further true. That's the last thing I remember talking.
Yeah.
He sat in for Candace, say something.
Candace.
Yeah.
Doesn't start whenever what she's focusing on investigation, not investigative journalism, she's very good. But probably because she grew up poor family, didn't have good elementary education, a lot of things that you would take for granted, that base knowledge everybody should know, foundation, she didn't have that. But now she's able to pick up whenever it's necessary, whenever we'll make a good podcast. She's good at it. She shows her talent. But because her earlier childhood, she didn't have a chance to lay the foundation that normal people would. Well, that's my guess. I haven't seen her very often. I just have prejudices against black people. I don't know anything. I only have my prejudice.
Liz? Yes. Yeah, she probably needs it.
Oh yeah, that's very stressful work because you're on all the time.
Good for her that she's having a good kid. That's good.
Oh, the third one. I remember I caught a video. She was in a panel discussion Q&A, answer your question. I'm pregnant. That was about over a year ago. So now she's pregnant again. Good for her.
If I think of it, curious.
Yeah, I always wonder because I can't get off my mind like this is European tradition, you guys' tradition to be anti-Semitic or some kind of Jewish thing, anti-Jewish thing. That's historically. That's not you. It's not you. It's not personal. I know that background knowledge, right? That you have this tradition. You have this history. So I wonder how much is carried into today. I'm sure it's in everybody's little bit. Even me, I'm Chinese. I'm not European. We traditionally we don't have much contact with that part of the world. People from that. But even I'm kind of rub off on me a little bit. I was like, yeah, I can see that. So let alone you guys. So I want to know how much that plays into or that factor into your thinking. Where you have your emotion, where you have your anger, where you just, you know what I'm saying? I want to get to the emotional level. No particular reason. I'm just curious. No particular useful reason. You know, your reasoning. I can all see that. Although I don't care, I don't have a lot of knowledge, but I can easily look into if I'm really interested. You know what? I'm not interested. You know, I can tell you why I'm not interested. So I want to know. By the same token, I'm curious about why you're so interested. You know what I'm saying? On the emotional level. Because I know why emotional I'm not interested. So I'm, because the intellectual level is easy to attain, right? The information is out there, just use your judgment. But emotional level, on the real person, I don't want to read about it. I want to talk with a real person, like emotional level. I'm just curious. I really have no agenda. I'm just curious.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure it's on tape. It's on tape. You can hold me to it.